who not only lost in the U.S. Open final to Naomi Osaka on Saturday, but also got fined $17,000 for a verbal altercation with the chair umpire, Carlos Ramos, over his decision to dock Serena a game for repeated code violations. Take a listen.
Are you kidding me? Because I said you're a thief. Because you stole a point from me. But I'm not a cheater. But why? But I told you to apologize to me. But you know how many other men do things that are, I don't think they do much worse than that. This is not fair. There's a lot of men out here that have said a lot of things, and because they're a man, that doesn't happen to them.
A number of people came to Serena's defense after the incident, including Andy Roddick, who tweeted, quote, "So I'll only comment on the sport that I played professionally for 13 years. I've said worse and never got a penalty in my entire career. I don't care how long he's been a referee. Mistakes happen, and I believe he made one. Serena certainly wasn't perfect either." Serena doubled down on the double standard theme during her post-match press conference.
I've seen other men call other umpires several things, and I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality and for all kinds of stuff. And for me to say thief and for him to take a game, it made me feel like it was a sexist remark. I mean, like, how he's never took a game from a man because they said thief. For me, it blows my mind. I just feel like the fact that I have to go through this is just an example for the next person that has emotions and that want to express themselves and they want to be a strong woman, and they're going to be allowed to do that because of today. Maybe it didn't work out for me, but it's going to work out for the next person.
Thank you, everyone. A lot to unpack here, Marcellus.
Yeah.
I think there's enough blame to go around for everybody. I think that, I always say about officials, particularly in the biggest games, let the people on the court decide it. No one's there to see the chair umpire or the referee in basketball. And so I agree with the people that say Carlos Ramos overreacted and did too much. I also agree with the people, though, that say there's a way to handle adversity, and Serena didn't handle it well and created an international incident, and it's something that overshadowed this young woman from Japan at 20 years old winning her first major, that Serena's handling of the umpire overshadowed a great moment and a great victory. Serena was getting beat. She got beat in the first set, got her butt whipped pretty good, and I think that frustration just blew up into an incident, and I see blame on both sides, but I'll stop there and continue.
Yeah, tons of layers to this story right here. As you said, the blame pie, everybody getting a piece, you know, in that respect. The moment of altercation with an official is not necessarily the time to have the trial, in that moment. We could apply that to other facets of life as well. But the thing that I do support with Serena and what she was saying is she was trying to make a distinction between being graded on standard or being graded on a curve. Because if she's looking at it like, there's a double standard here, because if we're just saying, hey, no one talks to the officials, that's man and woman. If we're saying, hey, you can talk to the officials and you can have energy, passion, you can go there on an official, then if that's the standard, what did I do wrong? But if you're grading it on a curve, which is like, oh, men get away with certain things, and we saw it exampled in the clothing change, where a point's assessed as penalty to a woman who's making a clothing change, but to a man, he's not assessed the same penalty. So I understand where she's coming from. The hypocrisy had boiled over to her to the point where she wanted to take issue.
I get it, but I also think it's a know your personnel. If you're a student of the game,
preach.
Carlos Ramos's reputation is well documented. I'm not a tennis expert.
No.
I'm someone that watches Serena Williams matches and ignores the rest of tennis. And I think a lot of people discussing this are just like me. We watch tennis when Serena's playing, and we ignore the rest of tennis. And so I think a lot of our opinions are ill-informed. And then when I see people, are they actually doing the homework and the research? This umpire's reputation, well established with men, Rafael Nadal, quoted a couple years ago, feeling like this ref or this umpire had it in for him and has picked on him. Quoted New York Times everywhere talking about this particular umpire. This particular umpire he's got a quick whistle or, he will penalize you more quickly than any place else. And so where I blame Serena is like, well, you got the first warning, and that was the inappropriate warning for the coaching.
Right.
Everybody, the coaching warning he made was doing too much. But it's like when a referee gives you a bad technical in an NBA game, and well, now I got to be real extra careful because if I get a second one, I'm tossed out of the game. So once you got the bad technical, yellow card, foul, whatever, you can't break your racket.
Right.
Because you can't slam your racket and break your racket because the ref now, based on the rules, has no choice but to assess a second penalty, and that a second penalty is the loss of a point and all. And so she had, again, to me, this is Draymond Green, this is Charles Barkley, this is a player that's a bit too emotional. And I just want to be clear here in terms of there's plenty of players, Nadal, from McEnroe to everybody, they've all been, if you're an emotional player, these umpires get after you. It's not just a man thing. And so I sometimes think we overlook incompetence and go straight to personal attack. Oh my God, that person wasn't incompetent. They attacked me because I'm a woman or because I'm black or because I'm Latino. Sometimes it's just incompetence.
Okay, I get that. Look, not all the time is race or gender motivation for your actions. But all the times it's considered when it's talking about penalty and punishment. Because if you look at it, the race issue here, I think is minimal. I think that's a stretch to a large degree. But the gender issue, I think she has a valid and correct point in if I go to the courts and I'm watching the male counterparts go out there and perform, and they're getting away with everything. I mean, left side, right side of their mouth, it doesn't matter. As long as it comes out your mouth, it's fine. And then I go to that same place, and then all of a sudden, the penalty, all of a sudden, the punishment, that's when the race and gender comes into play, especially the gender place. So I'm looking at it like you said it, emotion. We all try to contain it, but the emotional context of any match, especially the U.S. Open, good luck trying to contain that because you feel like everything's on the line, especially as you're trying to break the most majors won. So this mounting pressure and a comeback, everything. I just look at Serena in that moment, and she's going to have some regret because she's going to say, I just got upset and over-emotional facing the 20-year-old who was already putting it on me. Like, that's what's gotten lost. Serena lost 6-2, 6-4. Serena didn't lose 7-5. It wasn't close, and she made it worse.
She was doing well in the second set, I think, up 3-1 when things went sideways. I'll say this. Serena is arguing that she's fighting for women's rights and that part of her stance here is so that women get treated like men. Martina Navratilova wrote a very good piece for the New York Times today that I thought made a great point, and it's a point that I ask people all the time. What are we really fighting for? Are we fighting so that we can make all the mistakes and do all the bad things others do? And if that's the case, is that really a fight worth having? And so Martina's point was like, it's like when your kids get in trouble and they say, well, Jimmy and them, they smoke weed. You just caught me with a beer. And it's the pointing all over to every other kid and blah, blah, blah. Every other kid's doing this. That's something that you're supposed to grow out of by the time you're in your late 30s and you're a parent. And so this whole thing of, oh, well, McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and this guy and that guy did it. And so I'm not, and this is where I get crossways with a lot of people about my point of view. And this will be a harsh statement. I'm not fighting to do the bad things white guys do. That's not my fight in life. I'm actually fighting to represent my family and the people I care about and to represent, quite honestly, God in a way that brings honor to my family and the church that I grew up in. And I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of public mistakes, but I'm willing to claim them, own them, and not sit there and say, well, so-and-so got to do this and so-and-so got to do that. Why can't I do it? When you make a mistake, own it.
Yeah, let's get nuanced because I like the fact that you brought that layer up. I took exception what Martina Navratilova said because in totality, she's internalized the discrimination against the women in the sport. Like she's accepted it to a point where she says, well, they get away with it, but why would we want to get away with the same thing? And you could take that to other facets of life and say, ooh, that's not a good place to be. I respect what you're saying. Like, I don't want to be as bad as someone on the other side in terms of race or in gender because I don't want to play down to my lower self.
Yeah.
But one level of equality and fairness is if I do play down to that level, am I being harshly punished or justly punished? Serena is saying I wasn't justly punished because the men do the same thing. And man after man in the tennis world has tweeted that we get away with it.
I agree. But man after man after man isn't the greatest